Good afternoon and welcome to the first board meeting of the academic year. A new student convocation held last month. President Barron welcomed over 8,000 enthusiastic students who hail from 68 countries and 44 states. The rainbow of t-shirt colors indicated the college of each student and helped the new students connect with others with similar interests. UPUA President and board colleague Katie Jordan gave an inspiring welcome, noting that new students are joining a world-class research institution with some of the brightest people on the planet working to make our world a better place. Well said, Katie, and on behalf of the board, I want to welcome our incoming class as well as our returning students. Meanwhile, 8,599 new students began their education at one of our Commonwealth campuses. Students at Abington and Brandywine returned to campus to find two new beautiful residence halls, the first for both campuses. I was honored to participate in both ribbon-cutting ceremonies a few weeks ago. I also want to note how significant these projects were for those campuses in terms of attracting new students. Abington had a 19% increase in incoming students over last year, while Brandywine saw a 31% increase. Those are really, really significant numbers. The board played a key role in moving those projects forward, so I want you to know how meaningful these buildings are in creating a cohesive campus community, and I want to thank all board members for their support. At Abington, Nicholas Worrell, a senior life sciences major pictured here, represented the first group of resident assistants at the campus, and he indicated the training and mentoring he and his fellow college resident assistants received was life-changing and heightened his awareness and understanding of how his new role will impact the community he is helping to create. At Brandywine, the celebration for the opening of the new resident hall, as well as the student union, is already having a significant impact on the campus and surrounding community. As you can see, at Brandywine, everyone got into the action for move-in day, including the Nittany Lion and one of the orientation leaders helping students with the first ever move-in day. I was very pleased that Trustee Fenza and Kleppinger joined me in both of those celebrations. So thank you, Rob and David. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce a few of our new colleagues. On our Academic Leadership Council chair is Marie Harden, who serves as Dean of the Donald P. Belisario College of Communications. While joining us a little late today, we certainly appreciate the leadership role she will be undertaking during the upcoming year. We look forward to seeing Marie at our board meetings. Mary Beam joins us for today's board meeting in her role as Interim Vice President for Human Resources. Mary, we appreciate you taking on this leadership role. Our new Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs, Kathy Bischke, is with us today for her first board meeting. Yesterday, Kathy spoke to our Academic Affairs and Student Life Committee, and we appreciate her taking time to do that. Welcome, Kathy. I want to welcome Shelley Ziegler-Byers, who joined the board staff at the end of August. On behalf of my colleague, Shelley, I hope you feel welcomed in your new role, and we will look forward to working with you. And if you need to learn anything from Jeannie, it's tough duty, so good luck with it. In July, we recognized our outgoing administrative fellows, and I'm pleased today that the two new administrative fellows are with us. Laura Miller is a senior energy engineer in the Office of Physical Plant, and she will be spending her fellowship year with David Gray, and Michelle Schaefer, who will be mentored by Neil Sharkey. Michelle is an alumni relations and stewardship coordinator in donor relations and special events. Laura and Michelle, I hope you find your upcoming year professionally and personally rewarding. I could not be more delighted today to have some special guests with us. We have three new members of Penn State's interdisciplinary team who recently placed second among 77 teams in NASA's 3D Printed Habitat Challenge. When thinking about 3D printing, I don't do much of that, but I guess when I do, I imagine things like toys, jewelry, or other small items. But in this competition, the teams were asked to use a 3D printer to build a shelter to support human exploration of Mars. The challenge required using materials that would be available on Mars and needed to be built remotely. Penn State's team included architectural and engineering faculty members, digital fabrication faculty and staff, and many undergraduate and graduate students. I will give very brief introductions of our three speakers to allow them time to describe their incredible work. First, we have Shadi an associate professor of architecture. Her research has been focused on novel ways to join building components to reduce air leakage, increase energy efficiency, and waste fewer resources. The result has been seamless architecture, meaning a seamless transition of materials without the use of any mechanical joints or adhesives. Samples of how concrete merges with glass are on the front table, and Matt will give us a little show. There you go, Matt. And this is now a patented process. Joe Seido Arte serves as Professor of Architecture and Landscape Architecture and Chair in Design Innovation and Director of the Stuckman Center for Design Computing. His interests focus on the use of computation to support mass customization, defined as the context-sensitive design and making objects at different scales from urban design, materials design. Sivan Bilen, this is challenging, is an associate professor of engineering design, electrical engineering, and aerospace engineering, and head of the School of Engineering Design, Technology, and Professional Programs. The expertise he brought to the team includes system design, wireless sensor systems, innovative engineering design, systems design, and new product design. Before Shadi and her colleagues take the podium, here's a short video of the printing of a cone, which is just one example of their research. They also have developed ways to print other building components, such as cylinders and beams, which have all undergone compression testing to determine structural stability. Thank you. They're going to come up? Great.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, President Barron and boards of trustees, for the opportunity to speak about the visions that each of us, the faculty lead members, brought to the NASA competition effort. It has been astonishing to experience levels of interest and support at Penn State for a vision that had been brewing in my mind for at least a decade prior to coming here. I taught 17 years at prestigious research universities, but never had I experienced such support for interdisciplinary research and such openness to transforming educational models to effectively push the boundaries between disciplines and to enable students to understand their own discipline through appropriation of new technologies. I achieved my vision of seamless interface between glass and concrete, with or without a gradual transition, only 3 years after I arrived here. The possibility of seamless graded transition between materials presents opportunities to create new types of architectural and artistic expressions. For example, it is possible in a single walled surface to have multiple optical and structural characteristics by changing the ratio of the substances, resulting in higher structural capacity, thermal properties, and transparency. So the multiple layers inside a typical wall are no longer necessary. It is possible to eliminate the need for conventional window frames and the array of smaller joints needed to deal with the necessary thermal, fluid, vapor, and acoustic barriers, each introducing added complexity, cost, and labor. each raising the chances of heat loss from joints in our buildings. Our innovation makes possible sustainable practices in production processes and in buildings' performance. It presents novel solutions for shelters in harsh conditions, where impermeability between various materials and through surfaces is required, here on Earth and beyond. Casting techniques. Casting is a technique that I've used so far to produce examples and proof of concept at small scales that you see on the tables right here. But our approach signifies unique potentials and precision that comes with digital technologies and 3D printing in the design and production of functionally graded materials and seamless architecture at architectural scale. I met José Duarte about a year and a half ago when he arrived at Penn State and understood how his line of research could facilitate achieving seamless architecture through design computing and 3D printing. We decided to combine our research. So we applied for grants, and our work is now supported by multiple internal grants and external support. And we have grown our team to include extraordinary PSU faculty, staff, and students from many departments. Their names are on the screen, I believe. José will further explain. Please welcome José Duarte.
Good morning. Hello, President Barron, Board of Trustees. It's my pleasure to be here today to explain a little bit how we together arrived at what you can see here. I see myself as a scientist and as a designer. As a scientist, I like to understand the world. As a designer, I like to design things, to create things that add to that world. Many years ago, while I was a college student, I had to go through parts of the city that were not that pleasant. And I came from a very beautiful small hill town. So I became interested in understanding the structure and genesis of urban settlements. So when I came to the States to do my graduate studies, I developed a framework that could replicate how settlements and houses can be built and are generated. So I have used this framework, which I've called the Framework for Mass Customization, after I finished the PhD, on many different scales, in the design of urban developments, down to the design of objects of daily use, like ceramics and so on. So when I came to Penn State a year and a half ago, I had actually started to think about I could use the same framework going down in scale to the design of materials. So I developed this idea of functionally graded materials. Think of a wall, for instance, that it's made up of a material that you obtain by mixing concrete and cork in different degrees. You can actually change the composition of the material in response to functional requirements. For instance, you can make the material heavier and stronger when the load is heavier, or you can make it lighter and more porous when the load is lighter. So by manipulating the material, you can actually have an optimized response. We have shown that this approach can actually lead up to 30% of energy savings in the operation of buildings, but as well it can be used to save material in the production and the construction of buildings. So while talking to Shadi, whom I met at the Department of Architecture, and discussing what we were interested in, we realized that there are many points of interest, of common interest in our research. So we decided to join efforts and develop a process for making this possible. So you can see her seamless transition as a functionally graded material. So we started working on the development of a 3D printing process, or if a better term, additive manufacturing process, to make this possible. So, and then I met Sven, and in Sven, we realized we had a big passion together, which was to design and build houses for Mars. It happens that a few weeks later, there was a call from NASA saying that, let's 3D print a habitat on Mars. So we joined efforts. We got Shadi on board as well, Nick, Ali, Alexander, other colleagues from the department, from the College of Engineering, and many other students, and also Jamie Hallman, director of the digital fabrication at our school, and we started working on this process. And now I will let Sven continue the story. Thank you.
Just like to say that I'm very pleased to be standing in front of you, President Barron, and the Board of Trustees, as a proud Penn State alum, class of 1991 College of Engineering, and Schreier Honors College alum. Wasn't called that back then. Also a professor of engineering design, electrical engineering, aerospace engineering, and the head of our School of Engineering Design, Technology, and Professional Programs in the College of Engineering. And as you can see from the various titles that I've just listed here, and hopefully you can understand that I've always felt that innovation happens at the interfaces of disciplines. And I really relish pursuing these interdisciplinary projects, and I can definitely say that Penn State is the institution in which to do this. My approach has always been to look at things at the system level and to work to integrate various different pieces and people to accomplish things that were not previously possible when working in silos. I find Penn State to be extremely supportive of this cross-disciplinary research and the educational initiatives that underpin them. Really, how cool is it to think that a space systems-focused guy like myself is working with experts in 3D printing, or as my colleague Nick would say additive manufacturing, concrete, and I now know the difference between concrete and cement, as my colleague Alexandra keeps reminding me, architectural design, and then traveling to the NASA Centennial Challenge on an old farm truck in a trailer provided by the College of Ag Sciences, hauling a robot, and then of course coming away with winnings and prestige for Penn State. Can truly say that we are Penn State. The research we've overviewed quickly here dovetails nicely with the emphasis on additive manufacturing currently going on at Penn State. Indeed, it extends this to a new domain of additive manufacturing for the construction field. Another example of strong interdisciplinary educational efforts that underpin these things is the newly formed master's program in additive manufacturing and design, both resident and online, which is jointly offered by 5 departments in 2 colleges, and of course we expect these collaborations to grow because we didn't previously do this in the construction industry. The program, which was just approved by the board this past July, already has its first students matriculated into it, and that shows you the demand for education in this new emerging field of additive manufacturing. And lastly, I'd like to call out how amazing it is the engagement of students that we have here at Penn State. I've always sought ways to integrate my teaching, research, and service, and having students work on cutting-edge projects like this one is certainly one way to do that. We have absolutely amazing students here at Penn State, ones who will become leaders in their field and impact society. I'd like to call out some of the students and raise your hand when this happened. Andrew Przemski, Nate Watson, Minyuk Ko, Nagar Ashrafi, and Kunyuk Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very, very inspiring, and we really, really greatly appreciate your creativity, interdisciplinary efforts, and providing a compelling example of faculty, students, and staff working together to achieve such an amazing accomplishment. You all make us very proud, and thank you for spending time with us today. And being in the construction industry, we need a lot of innovation and technology, to be honest with you. Please note that the board met this morning in executive session to discuss various privileged matters. We have a full agenda before us, so let's proceed with today's business. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and Jeannie, please call the roll.
Barron? Here. Brown? Here. Capretto? Here. Casey? Cotner? Here. Dambley?
Here.
Dandria?
Here.
Detweiler?
Here.
Dietrich?
Here.
Duran?
Here.
Dunn? Fenza?
Here.
Hahn?
Here.
Harpster?
Here.
Hartzler?
Here.
Hochel?
Here.
Hoffman?
Here.
Jubileer? Kleppinger. Lubert. Lebrano. Mosser. McCumby. Oldsey. Paterno. Pope.
Here.
Potts.
Here.
Rakowicz. Redding. Rivera. Schneider. Schuyler.
Here.
Steele. Tribeck.
Here.
Weinstein. Wolf. Shipley.
Thank you, Jeannie. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21st meeting? Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This time, I'd like to ask President Barron to provide his report.
So I don't know whether Shadi knows that I'm constantly bragging about her when I go and give alumni talks, because she really epitomizes what Penn State is all about. There's a reason why, in the midst of declining federal support and declining state support, that this university hit an all-time record in terms of research funds. And it's because faculty, and in particular faculty that are willing to cross lines to solve problems. So I listened to her give a talk about how to save energy in building construction, for which she crossed disciplines to figure out a way to not have a gap where windows meet walls. And work to solve that, glass sciences, adaptive manufacturing, who do I need to talk to help solve a problem? And then all of a sudden, I mean, this is so much like Penn State, to realize that here's a NASA competition because NASA knows that it can't send a building to Mars, and it can't send an astronaut to Mars if they don't have a place to live. And so what do? You take a printer to Mars and print the building by mining the soil. Fantastic concept. And we take pride they got second place, only 2 awardees out of that 77 group. This group has been working a very short time. The other group was a company that's been working on this problem for years. And Penn State's ready to go to the next level. In my mind, this really, when Sven said we are, this project epitomizes what Penn State is about. Well, today I thought I should focus, it would be a good idea to focus on all the strategies for addressing budget challenges at Penn State. We've really had 2 decades of steady declines in state appropriation if you consider inflation, and we've had increasing costs year in and year out that are caused because of our efforts to provide a high-quality education and fulfill our land-grant mission. 2 approaches to this problem other than finding ways to raise revenue. One is budget reductions and reallocations, direct efforts to save dollars, and the other is to seek budget relief, to seek other ways to provide the funds that we need for things that we're expanding or trying to do better. This is a familiar diagram to all of you in terms of the state appropriation. In red is when we had a mid-year rescission. And you can see basically 2 episodes of budget declines. One of those which is occurring at about, starting at 02-03, and the other one in 11-12. It doesn't look too bad until you realize what it is in terms of inflation. The line above is if we took the 01-02 year and included inflation using a very conservative index, the CPI. And what you realize, if the state had just maintained inflation from its budget in 01 and 02, we would have a 13% tuition decrease for this institution just by maintaining the inflation of our budget. Many people have said so. We know tuition increases, percentages have been strong. Eric, have you noticed the trend, which the trend nationally is to decrease the percentage of tuition increases? So I thought it might be nice to take the Wall Street Journal article that came out this summer with the tuition increases, which are shown there in a kind of a blue color, and compare that with the tuition increases at Penn State for Tier 1, University Park, and Tier 4 campuses. And what you see is actually rather interesting. One is we have two spikes of tuition increases. They coincide with the budget cuts from the state in terms of those years, the years immediately after those particular budget cuts. And two, we have consistently, other than those two times, we have consistently been below the national trend of percentage of tuition increases. And even in the last few years, trying to get as close to zero as possible for our Tier 4 campuses. So this provides a context of the tuition increases that have occurred. More tuition increases when we had budget cuts, but a consistent attitude of trying to keep those tuition increases below the national average. You cannot see this chart. The board has seen this chart a little bit earlier. This is an attempt to focus strategically on the budget cuts by looking at 5 years to assume that there'll be a 2.5% increase in salaries for our faculty, to assume a amount of increases on an annual basis for health care. There is in here now, for the first time, our commitment to try to take care of our aging physical plant and the large number of buildings that exceed 50 years of age that have not had maintenance. There is a small number in this budget, our $2 billion a year education and general budget, that's all we're talking about here. There's a small increase for innovation. There's so much going on in the world in terms of how higher education is evolving. We really truly need those dollars to innovate, and in the midst of working very hard to maintain costs, there's about $9 million in that line. We also have something in this line, small, for unanticipated needs, because every single year it turns out that we discover there's something that we need to do. Create a new Title IX office, build another segment, some other problem to solve, and we have not been budgeting those elements. The bottom line of this is if we include taking care of our aging physical infrastructure, this university has to find over $80 million a year, year in, year out. For the next year, and we try to presage this as much as possible, we have several areas that are part of a strategic effort to reduce cost. There is, because we've renegotiated our health care and a prescription drug program, a significant savings, of which here is booked $10 million for next year. We've had a voluntary retirement program, and for that we were able to book $14.4 million in savings. And we have almost identified an additional $10 million of savings. So this is a $34.4 million savings so far to date that we have found. That suggests that we have a net expense increase that we have to find of $50 million. We have more students. So we're taking a look at some of that revenue and deciding that it might be called permanent. And $9.4 million is there in tuition in tuition revenue before an increase. Also included in that is more people going in the summer. So now we need $40 million to balance the budget. What you see below there is for next year a 3.04% budget increase. 1% is if we just operated the university under all of these constraints. It's the physical plant, the dedication to do something to fix the physical plant, that is 2 percentage point increase in tuition. Each year we follow that through. We're able to add to that the savings that we know for 3 years will occur because of the health management policy and prescription drug management. And after that, we have to continue to look. And so you will see two of the things we're trying to do to find increased savings in those out years so that we can manage this year in, year out increase of $80 million in terms of needs. So I'd like to give you a little bit of a history of those budget reductions. We've been working at this for quite some time. Since 1992-93, we have a cumulative savings reallocation of $403 million. About $308 million of that is from University Park and other campuses, $23 million from the Hershey Medical Center. From that period of 1993 to 2003, the focus was really on what was called a university future process, a Commonwealth campus budget reduction process, and University Planning Council process. Since 2004, we have had a high level of recycling from our budgets, taking from all in order to manage what we needed to do next. But there's also been a focus, particularly recently, on cost savings initiatives. Just to give you an idea of what those budget reductions have been year in and year out, it looks like this. Again, you can see something that's rather interesting. Right along with a tuition increase every time the state cut the budget, we have an increased effort for us to cut our budget each time the state has cut our budget. So you see a spike there early on, and then 5 years in a row for which there have been significant cuts post the 20% cut in 11. Then you see 2 years for which it dips, and that's because we ceased to recycle. We made the determination that 23 years of recycling 1% to 2% from every unit was actually having a rather dramatic impact on the composition of our faculty, because deans didn't want to invest in a tenure-line faculty because of budget insecurity. They would rather hire a term appointment faculty member. So determining that we shouldn't be creating this as an unintended consequence of doing budget cuts year in and year out, we ended that and then began a process of looking again at more strategic budget cuts. So how did we save that $403.8 million? As I said, we had 23 years of recycling from departments at 1% to 2% a year. That's a very long time to be using the same mechanism to control your budget. We worked to analyze academic programs and departments, assessing their need and cutting programs and combining departments. We had areas for which there were targeted cost savings, including OPP and purchasing strategic savings. I give you a couple of examples there in terms of energy savings since 2003, totaling $62 million, aggressive energy procurement strategies that saved over $10 million, and IT initiatives, reliability-centered maintenance practices, custodial program changes, one thing after another in order to pick up small savings that add up to a $4 million annual savings. We have eliminated a lot of programs in that time period. So now that's not saying the net is a change that's negative, but you know universities are constantly working to innovate and create new majors, and if we see a need, we add that. But we can also see that if we look back over the world of universities, many times they add, but they don't take the time to sit there and eliminate. So over this time period, 244 program eliminations and mergers have occurred, including the closing of 14 academic departments. So I just want you to know that we had that focus as well as looking for particular cost initiatives. Essentially, you could look at it as a constant effort to scrub our academic programs and their need. Following that, we've now had more of a long-term strategic approach to budget challenges, efforts to lower the university's cost structure while continuing to focus on academic excellence, and looking at those areas which may have substantial financial impact. And given the fact that 70% of our operating budget is people, this often means people. The long-term strategies to save money include four things that basically are coming to some level of completion, at least to be able to present them to you. And so the examples that I have there are the voluntary retirement program, new health care and prescription drug program, intercollegiate athletics from the Big Ten contract contributing now to other university needs, and efforts by the Vice President for research to help fund all of our Invent Penn State activities without asking for tuition to help drive the growth in staffing as we become successful. And then underway, but not yet booked as part of a budget savings, are human resource transformation and information technology transformation. The voluntary retirement program was a significant effort to reset the university budget. 587 faculty and staff retirements, with 499 of those being in education and general position, and 88 in other areas like auxiliaries. The savings for the E&G part of this is $14.4 million, additional savings for the auxiliary enterprises. In this chart, what you see is that at University Park, 121 faculty and 206 staff members took the voluntary retirement program. And the Commonwealth campuses, 81 faculty and 91 staff. Now, the way you save money in this is A, to sweep the position and not hire someone if you believe you can function without it, or to replace a senior, well-paid individual with a younger individual that has at a lower salary. And so you will see that we have at University Park, for example, 121 faculty in the program and a hiring of 121 faculty. As a matter of fact, the quality of our academic programs depend on the number of faculty, and even our rank as an academic institution depends on the number of faculty and class sizes that depend on the number of faculty. And so it's important for us to maintain that. It would actually be nice if in many of our programs we could add to the faculty. But 121 replaces 121, 6 staff on the 6 academic positions in the Commonwealth campuses that were not rehired. And the savings at the bottom there is $6 million at University Park and $8.3 million at the Commonwealth campuses, totaling about $14.4 million. So this is an important reset, an opportunity for us to have 200 faculty move from senior positions to junior positions. You may or may not know that the professoriate in this country is aging substantially, and I think the national average is something like 30% of the faculty are approaching the age of 70. So this is a reset in budget and a reset in having young people energize the faculty. The new healthcare and prescription plan with Aetna starting January 1. This follows having Highmark in this position for 10 years as our administrator. The contract ended, and we looked to see if we could have substantial savings. It was quite a process to review this, and what you see is that the total savings in terms of medical for the university, 11.7, pharmaceutical side, 9.6, a few other savings for a total annual savings of $23.6 million, and over the 3 years of the contract, we save $71 million. In addition, the faculty and staff save an additional $5.16 million. This is substantial. Only a portion of this is attributed to the E&G budget, the academic side of the house. And so those were the savings on the academic side of the house, or what was booked on that chart that showed $10 million of savings for the coming year. And that's basically that savings in that plan saved us a 1% tuition increase for next year, and that is substantial. Many of you know we have new media rights for the Big Ten. They went into effect 7/1/17. A group of about 4 presidents in the Big Ten, myself included, decided that the really rather remarkable growth in the funding of the Big Ten through the media licenses was an opportunity for us to take a portion of those funds and steer it to different uses in the university. So the success of our athletic programs now contributing even more to the success of the university. Right now, we're looking at the first year with $450,000 going to our CAPS program, Psychological Services Program for Mental Health. And with the addition of revenue from corporate contributions that we've gotten, next year that will be $700,000 as an annual contribution. And this annual contribution matches the efforts of our students to increase the fee so that we can provide a substantial improvement in mental health services at Penn State. So I think is a great thing in cost savings, but also to realize here's Penn State athletics contributing to the better mental health of all of our student bodies is a wonderful thing to think about. This also gives us the opportunity to support the Blue Band, which is part of our Arts and Architecture college, and there's $2.8 million there that we will look at to incentivize philanthropy to support programs as part of our capital campaign. It starts at $1 million and moves quickly to be a $4 million contribution, and I'm really appreciative that athletics was so willing to make that contribution to the E&G budget of this university. The Office of the Vice President for Research also has initiatives that are associated with revamping our intellectual property and commercialization enterprise, and they've tapped the Penn State Research Foundation income to replace or augment general fund dollars. So you can think of, all of a sudden, this foundation board being fully on board in terms of providing income that enables Invent Penn State. And so there is a table here which shows you the evolution of that foundation support, going from 2012, where it was $532,000, to 2017, which is $3.2 million in contributions. But I think what's interesting in looking at that is 2 new positions in technology and licensing officer, marketing and commercialization specialist, 2 positions to help support the Happy Valley Launchbox, 4 positions in the Office of Entrepreneurship and Commercialization, 5 unfilled positions that are going to support these efforts. So what we're seeing is that we could see the tremendous success of Invent Penn State and then turn to our budget that's generated by a state dollar and a tuition dollar to help fund the growth. But in this particular case, where royalties and income is coming into that foundation, the foundation is turning around and funding the positions that we need for that to be successful. So again, if you think about having to find $3 million a year in a tuition increase, because if you can't find it somewhere else, this is a great contribution which you could view as an avoidance of a tuition increase. They're also really working hard to leverage industry partnerships, and there's a whole set of things here in terms of the growth of industry-sponsored research award dollars and the growth in academic research service orders, the amount of money that's coming into some of our labs because of these contracts with companies like Corning and PPG and Morgan Advanced Materials and R.J. Lee. But one way to look at this is that we have critical facilities on this campus, and we have to pay for them. But what we're doing with these critical facilities is that we know corporations are interested in using those facilities. So by having the corporations come to Penn State and give us a user fee, we're depressing the need for the university to cover those costs. And so that either saves us money and allows us to buy this very expensive equipment, or it allows us to charge a lower user fee for our faculty. And you can see the growth here in Materials Research Institute alone in terms of the facility use in millions of dollars. So again, another cost avoidance structure, and one in which we're allowing our equipment to be used more efficiently and effectively than it would be otherwise. Those are a quick summary of the initiatives we've taken on over the last couple of years that we've been talking to you about it, and we have 2 that are in progress. One is a human resources transformation, and the other is an information technology transformation. In the human resource transformation, this is a multi-year effort to drive efficiency and transition to a more strategic delivery of HR services, to reduce the number of FTEs that are engaged in transactional work, Workday is being implemented, and that launch date is December 10th, and we're going to consolidate a lot of the work in more focused roles in centers of excellence and the HR Service Center. In addition to saving money, this is going to lessen risk and limit exceptions and improve the compliance that we have. But we also expect to be able to begin to identify significant costs as we make this transition. The information technology transformation is the second. The same type of idea to establish a cross-university shared vision for IT, to empower a culture of service, to optimize the investments because we're doing them centrally, to make sure that we're efficient in delivering those technology services, and at the same time make this a differentiator for the success of Penn State faculty and staff. So we already see here in computing and storage, emailing, calendar, and other things, identified about a $5.7 million savings through this process, which is partly booked in that $10 million I said of identified services. But this is just beginning, so you can expect to see more dollars included in out years for our savings. Well, this talk was all about saving dollars, but we'll also look, of course, at ways to generate new revenue. And that includes the growth of the continued growth of the World Campus enrollments, driving campus enrollments through aggressive marketing and incentive programs, which we have plenty of evidence that it works if we invest the dollars to be able to do that, marketing and recruiting. Expanded professional master's degree opportunities, continued alignment of program costs with upper division tuition, to have a tuition that's appropriate for the costs of those degrees, to provide a comprehensive assessment, reassessment of tuition rate and fee structures, resident versus non-resident versus international student. A greater focus on retention. The Open Doors effort is a focus on retention as well as graduation on time. Any student we retain is a student that we don't have to recruit. Makes a substantial difference to our budget if we can make the investments necessary to retain more students. If a state appropriation changes, I think it'll be very difficult not to imagine a change in the student mix that we have from in-state to out-of-state. And I also want to say that more and more we're talking about a deliberate strategy to make Penn State your university for life. Everybody tells us, and everything we see, you're going to have multiple jobs in your life, you're going to need new credentials, you're going to need new knowledge, and we should be looking at every student to say, you've just gotten a degree here, whatever you need next, we're here for you. Penn State is your education institution for life. And I suspect we're going to see substantial growth through time in revenue for people that will come back to Penn State because they need something to enhance their employment. So in summary, we've had 23 years of across-the-board cuts, and I believe very strongly that that means we need new mechanisms to find revenues, because 1% to 2% cuts per year for our institution is causing us to make some choices that don't make sense for the strength of our program. We're going to continue to look for cost-cutting measures. We're working harder and harder to have those be strategic, to focus on things that net us significant savings each year. You see that we have two very large things that we're working on currently. We're also going to look for other ways to find new revenues, but we're committed to maintaining our standard of excellence. Our degree that we offer our students that they pay for, we cannot afford to let that slip in quality. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions if you have time.
Our time's your time.
Yeah.
President Barron, first of all, I'd like to commend you and the prior presidents for, you cut $400 million over a 20-some-odd year period of time. That's a heck of a lot. And so I'd like to commend you on that. I do have one concern, and that's when we talk about IT. With all the security breaches that are beginning to happen throughout the world, And in particular, yesterday, in the Risk and Legal Subcommittee, we learned something, that Penn State is 3 times more breached than any other Big Ten university, and I presume that's because we do a lot of defense-type research. But my only concern is, you can cut to a point, but at the end of the day, I think we need to be building the best information security system of any university that's out there, given where we are. And I think it will be a revenue raiser for us over time in terms of attracting research dollars. And it's just more a comment than a question, but I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Well, actually, I really appreciate the comment very much because, it's important for me to come to you and say we're always looking to save a dollar. But I believe one of the huge motivations for the IT transformation is also to make us a secure institution. If we have multiple people operating in very different ways, then you have more avenues for problems within the institution. So to create that level of consistency in terms of how we operate and what the vision is for the institution, I think we believe that it will become safer as well as saving dollars. So that is part of the intent. I just was doing it from the budget side, not from the viewpoint that we actually think we will be a more secure and better run IT operation. We're not going to give up that need for that level of security. Having the defense labs here makes us a target. We have to stay on top of it.
Just a quick follow-up. Was that 3 times is more likely to be, or we were breached 3 times or attacked? We were attacked? Okay. I just
He said we were attacked 3 times more than
I
any other
just want to
Big
make
Ten
sure I read that
university.
right. Okay, good.
No, did I say breached? If I said
I
breached,
think.
I
I
meant
don't know.
attacked. It doesn't matter, it's a lot.
Right.
Right.
Yes, that's a big difference.
I
Attacked versus breached, yes. Anything else?
We're repelling a bunch of them. I'm going to give our guys credit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Barron. We appreciate all of your efforts and your senior leadership team and everybody on everything you're doing. Really appreciate that. Just want to take a moment to recognize our Maritime trustees. I see a number of them, 7 of the 8 which I actually serve with, so I must be getting old. But thank you so much for coming. The institutional knowledge that you bring and all that you've done for us in the past is greatly appreciated. And we thank you for coming and participating in the committees and certainly hope you continue to join us. So thank you. Appreciate that. I'll now call on Committee Chair Bill Olsey for the report on the Committee on Academic Affairs and Student Life. Mr. Olsey?
Thank you, Mark. Committee on Academic Affairs and Student Life met yesterday with a quorum present. In fact, perfect attendance. All committee members and key administrative partners were present. Damon Sims, our Vice President of Student Affairs, shared information with us on several key university initiatives. First and most important, certainly the reform efforts that we're making on Penn State fraternity and sorority life. We also talked about campus recreational facilities and the membership fees associated with those. We also heard from our provost, Nick Jones, who provided us with an excellent update on the progress being made on some key leadership searches. We talked about a number of them, including the search that's ongoing for the new dean of our College of Nursing, as well as an associate vice president for affirmative action at Penn State. Provost Jones also updated us on our ongoing enterprise system transformations. Nick, I think Nick, it's fair to say that Nick will welcome the day when he can stop talking to us about our enterprise systems transformations, but he did an excellent job yesterday filling us in on LionPath, WorkLion, our new learning management system, Canvas. We've made the move from Angel to Canvas, and it's been a very smooth and good one. IBIS, just to name a few. Additionally, Nick shared with us a very positive and very reassuring report on admissions. Rob Pangborn was not able to join us yesterday. Nick sat in for him and gave us some very positive news on the admissions from the 2017-2018 data. We were then very proud to have Breon Pragg, who's with us today, who's our vice president of our graduate student government, giving us an update on what's going on within graduate student government. The three student governments are hard at work this fall semester on a variety of topics, and I am reminded that in academic affairs and student life, we learn a great deal from listening to our student leaders, and we expect them to play major advisory roles with us as we continue to meet during the course of the year. We as a committee are constantly reminded that the more time we spend with our faculty and with our students, the more effective we become as academic affairs and student life, and we will make every effort to make that happen with regularity. Nick also introduced Kathy Bischke. I hope I got it right, Kathy. Is it Bischke? Is it close? Close, huh? Not right. Well, in any event, Chair Dambley congratulated Kathy on her new position earlier. Kathy is our new Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs, coming off a one-year interim deanship at the Schreier Honors College. We're very pleased to have Kathy in this new position. She gave us, we've really redefined this position a little bit, and Kathy gave us her new vision for the office, including plans for its oversight and for its growth. Kathy reminded us that we have well over 6,000 full-time faculty across the Penn State enterprise. And her functional area supports our faculty in mission-critical areas, supporting them. Really, our world-class faculty is only world-class because they get support in the human resources areas and in professional development from Kathy's group. And finally, we also had a very, very energizing and informative session with Michael Barabay, who's chair-elect of Faculty Senate, and Matthew Wessner, who is chair of the Faculty Senate. Matthew and Michael did a great job of really taking us through what the priorities are for the Faculty Senate in academic year 2017-2018. They also shared with us a governance model that they've implemented that has led to some terrific advancements within the Faculty Senate. So it was an excellent meeting. We had an excellent work session aimed at establishing what our key priorities for the balance of the year would be. And I think everybody's motivated and energized by the challenges that are in front of us. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my speedy report for the Committee on Academic Affairs and Student Life.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you. We like speed. Thank you, Bill, and really thanks for digging in as the new chair of academic affairs and following up on Abe's fine work. I'll ask Committee Chair Walt Rakovitz to provide a report of the Committee on Audit and Risk and to report as well on the joint meeting of this committee, his committee, with the Legal and Compliance. Walt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committee met yesterday morning, and as you mentioned, we also had a joint meeting in the afternoon with our colleagues from the Committee on Legal and Compliance, so I'll report on both of those meetings. At our Audit and Risk meeting, we began with a review of the roles and responsibilities matrix so that we can ensure that our discussions flow and support that matrix. And we also reviewed the results of the committee's annual assessment survey. This tool greatly assists in ensuring that we provide information and facilitate discussions in accordance with our charter. There were some thoughts and suggestions in that survey for more in-depth discussions on risk topics, which our risk subcommittee will be addressing. Ted Brown and Gary Langsdale then updated the committee on the recent activities of the risk subcommittee, including its recent meeting. Then Joe Donchez gave an update on the status of the university's external financial statement audit and the engagement of a firm to perform the audit of Nittany Insurance Company. With respect to our joint meeting with the Legal and Compliance Committee, first Regis Becker introduced Wayne Mowry, who's the Senior Director of Compliance, and he briefed the committees, joint committees that is, on the results of the top 9 compliance risk assessments. Then Steve Dunham reported on the guidelines and criteria for legal and risk reporting to the board, which has been updated since it was first developed in 2013. This document helps guide the administration's decision-making as to which legal, compliance, and risk matters should be reported to the board. Following that, Gary Langsdale reported on the process, outcome, and response to the peer review undertaken for the university's enterprise risk management program. And then we concluded our joint meeting with Don Welch, our Chief Information Security Officer, who provided an update on the information security threat to higher education and specifically Penn State. He explained the results of our recent assessments, the university's information security strategy, and projects that are underway. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Walt. Turning on to the Committee on Compensation, I'll ask Trustee Schuyler for a report. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Compensation Committee met yesterday in an executive session. At a prior executive session on September 1st, the committee reviewed the performance of the Tier 2 and Tier 2A executives identified in the committee's operating guidelines. We also discussed the salary increase recommendations for these executives. At yesterday's meeting, however, at the request of the President, the committee did not take action on those proposed salary increases. The public session was therefore canceled yesterday. In addition, the committee reviewed the 2016-17 performance evaluation for the President. This information had previously been shared with the full Board of Trustees. Action on salary increases for the President and the other executives is not being recommended or taken at this time due to the fact that the Commonwealth has yet to approve the 2018 fiscal year budget, which impacts the 2017-18 fiscal year compensation deliberations. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Now here's one we really got to move forward on is Rob. Rob has reported on the, Rob Fenzel reported on the Committee on Finance, Business, and Capital Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bear with me, this is a long report. There was a quorum yesterday for the Finance, Business, and Capital Planning meeting. The committee approved the July 20th, 2017 minutes with Trustee Lebrano abstaining. We had two very extensive informational reports on operational risk yesterday, one from athletics and the athletics financial model, and one from financial funding risks from external sources. There are a number of action items requiring a board vote today, and I'll report the committee's recommendations for each of the action items. Multiple opportunities for briefings were provided to trustees through various opportunities to ensure that each trustee had a comfortable level of information. As we do, we had two webinars. We had detailed information provided on the board website, the board portal, and we also had supplemented with the university administration making themselves available to answer questions. I'm sure my colleagues appreciated these opportunities, and I trust that anyone seeking such additional information took advantage of these opportunities. Item 1 is the proposed naming of the new East Hall's Residence Hall to Martin Hall. Item 2 is the proposed naming of classroom buildings at Shavers Creek Environmental Center to the Donald W. Hamer Classroom Building. The committee reviewed and approved items 1 and 2 unanimously. Are there any questions? Item 3, proposed renaming of the Gary Schultz Child Center at Hort Woods to the Child Care Center at Hort Woods. The committee reviewed and approved item 3 with a 6-to-1 vote. Item 4, appointment of non-university employees to the Penn State Investment Council. The committee reviewed and approved item 4 unanimously. Item 5, the proposed approval of fiscal year 2018 to 2019 through fiscal year 2022 to 23 capital plan. This is a 5-year capital plan. The committee heard and discussed a presentation from David Gray at yesterday's meeting. I am pleased that there has been much discussion and deliberation on these topics over the past year. I want to especially thank the current and the immediate past members of the Finance, Business, and Capital Planning Committee for their thoughtful and active participation in the development of this plan. In reporting out this action by the committee, I want to first briefly highlight key elements of the proposed new 5-year capital plan. The plan totals $4.7 billion and is supported by $2.2 billion in debt authorization. While the new debt authorization could possibly put downward pressure on our credit rating, deferring action on the plan's proposed keep-up and catch-up could put us at further risk as well, given the fact that 65% of our buildings at University Park are 25 years or older, and 40% of our buildings at University Park exceed 50 years of age. For this reason, the ratio of keep-up plus catch-up versus new buildings is 67% keep-up and catch-up, 33% new buildings. We are beginning the plan with a 10 to 15% contingency, and that contingency is in addition to each individual project has a contingency built into the budget for things that might happen on an existing project as an unforeseen condition. But as there are emerging priorities over the next 5 years, we wanted to build into the plan additional money that we can address these things. And those priorities are unknown at this time, but things emerge when you run an operation like this. So the plan has a little bit of capacity to tackle additional problems over the next 5 years or things that come up. Timing is critical. The scope and scale of this plan requires significant advanced planning in finalizing priority projects. Time is also critical from an interest rate standpoint. And you can't predict future interest rates, but it's likely they'll go up. And we have been in a low interest rate environment for quite some time, making it very attractive to borrow this kind of money at this time. We want to leverage our financial position, we want to leverage our balance sheet, and definitely take advantage of this low interest rate environment. This is also the first time the Board of Trustees, by way of the recent bylaw changes enacted this past July, we're being asked to authorize a 5-year capital plan. Now, the goal of that is to see the 5 years, to see the horizon, to see the projects, see the priorities, and have a much advanced opportunity to look at these things. But then each year, the university will come back to the committee and to the board and give us an update on where we are, so that if there is any need to adjust priorities, we will stay in the game, if you will, for that entire 5 years. But this is very similar how businesses look at their capital plan. They don't necessarily do it in tiny segments of year after year. A lot of these projects run multiple years anyway. Okay, to this end, the board will provide annual updates, as I mentioned. Furthermore, the proposed authorization sets approval thresholds for exceeding these amounts, both within and across the 3 major categories of education in general, Penn State Health and the College of Medicine, and self-supporting units. Okay, so if everything runs on budget, from 0 to 5%, if there's an unforeseen condition or a slight cost overrun, 0 to 5%, we're fine. The administration can handle that themselves with no reapproval. More than 5% and up to 10%, we'd like the administration to come back for reapproval from the Finance, Business, and Capital Planning Committee so that we can review, the change. If a project goes above 10%, or if one of those categories, I should say, increases above 10%, it will require the full Board of Trustees approval. The committee reviewed and approved item 5 unanimously. Are there any questions on this before I move on? Okay. Item 6 is the borrowing authority that couples with this capital plan for Penn State University. Item 7 is the proposed appointment of an architect for the Willard Building renovation at University Park. Item 8 is the proposed appointment of an architect for the Innovation Pavilion at Penn State College of Medicine. Item 9 is a proposed appointment of a design-build team at the West Campus parking garage for Penn State Health, Milton S. Hershey Medical Center. And the committee reviewed and approved items 6 through 9 and approved them unanimously. Any questions on that? Okay. I'll now ask David Gray to present item 10, which is the proposed final plan approval to authorize and expend funds for the new emergency room renovations at the Milton S. Hershey Medical Center.
Thank you, Rob. Penn State Health Milton S. Hershey Medical Center is the only hospital in central Pennsylvania with both an adult level 1 and pediatric level 1 trauma center. The volume of emergency medicine patients has steadily increased since the emergency department moved to its current location on the campus in 1995. The emergency department is currently at capacity, serving approximately 75,000 patients per year. This expansion project will enable the department to meet projected growth through 2024. The project goals include increasing the overall patient capacity of the emergency department, improving flow and departmental efficiency, and supporting a long-term phased realignment of the entire emergency department. Approximately 7,000 square feet of space will be renovated, and 28,000 square feet will be new addition space, including shell space on the second and third floors. The project scope will include 16 patient care spaces, EMS staging areas, a procedure room, a dedicated sexual assault exam area, an expanded decontamination and infectious disease isolation area, a security center, and other support spaces. This is a photograph of the existing entrance to the ED, and this is the architect's rendering of the proposed new entrance with a screen wall to segregate the ambulance approach from the public approach and a new canopy over the adjacent walkway. The total project budget for the emergency department expansion is $29.2 million, with funding coming from Hershey Capital Plan funds. We recommend approval of the final plans and authorization to expend funds for the emergency department expansion at the Penn State Health Milton S. Hershey Medical Center. Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions?
David?
Yes, sir.
I think it's important to note that, that this money is coming from Hershey.
That is correct. It is all from capital plan funds at the Penn State Health Milton S. Hershey Medical Center, correct?
Okay, thank you, David. The committee reviewed and approved item 10 unanimously. I'll now ask Dave Brannigan to present item 11, which is the review of the long-term investment pool as of June 30th, 2017. Dave?
Thank you. I've been told that I have 5 minutes, so I'm reminded of a quote from Franklin Roosevelt, who said about speech making, "Be sincere, be brief, and be seated." So I'll try to follow that. I'd first like to introduce John Pomeroy, who's in the back. John, could you stand up, please? John's our Chief Investment Officer. John is to be congratulated for a huge award that he received a couple months ago. He received the very prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award for 2017 by Institutional Investor, which is a very large investment organization, one of the largest. So we're very, very proud of John. And that's not all. Last year, by the same organization, our office received the Endowment of the Year Award. And I have to say, we're proud to represent the university in being recognized on a national stage like this, because it's among hundreds of our peer institutions who comprise the broad universe of all colleges and universities. So again, congratulations to John and our entire investment staff. We're truly blessed to have had a very tight, cohesive team for many years. And one thing that is a huge advantage for us compared to our peers is longevity, coupled with continuity and consistency. We've had no departures on our staff since 2000, when we started up. So again, we're proud of that and intend to keep things that way. In fact, we're not aware of any other institution, at least among our peer group, that can make this statement. So enough of this patting on the back here. I also do want to thank the board and the Penn State Investment Council for their support all these years, and a warm welcome to Ira Lubert for being our new member of the Penn State Investment Council. We're looking forward to working with you, Ira. Okay.
We haven't voted on that yet.
Oh, well. Okay, so I'll be highlighting information contained in the report that was included in your agenda material. This is a 5-year series of market values for a long-term investment pool we called our LTIP. On the far right, the LTIP topped out at $4.1 billion as of June 30th, 2017, which is a record high and obviously a huge milestone for us. Now, the pure endowment represents the majority of the LTIP assets at $2.6 billion. It's important to note that we experienced a healthy inflow of more than $100 million, in fact, $108 million in gifts earmarked for endowment during the year, which actually exceeded the outflow of endowment spending. This chart compares actual Penn State LTIP performance with two familiar benchmarks. First, a blended index called the Passive Policy Portfolio, and the second one is the Cambridge Associates survey of some 150 university endowments. The leftmost dark blue bars represent actual LTIP, or LTIP returns for the 1, 3, 5, and 10-year periods as you move from left to right. And they were 12.6%, 4.8%, 8.6%, and 5.6% respectively. The passive portfolio, which is shown in the middle, represented by the light blue bars for each time period, is actually described in detail on page 6 of the written report in your materials, but it's essentially a very common type of metric used by many institutional investors. And it's a blended index using policy weightings of the 4 sub-asset classes that we focus on: public equities, private capital, fixed income, and commodities, and then apply market index returns to each. So we're encouraged by the fact that the LTIP returns outperformed the policy portfolio in all 4 time periods. This has been a challenge in recent years, so this is good news. It's also a testament to the underlying professional money managers that we've selected and hired over the years, the majority of whom actively manage portfolios. In addition, our private equity program has been a major contributor. Oh, wait, gotta go back. Okay, the yellow bars on the far right for each of the 4 time periods represent the median returns of approximately 150 university endowments surveyed by Cambridge Associates. Their returns, median returns, were 12.9%, 3.9%, 7.9%, and 4.4% respectively across those 1, 3, 5, and 10-year periods. So with the exception of the trailing 12 months ended June 30th, our LTIP outperformed the median for each of the other time periods, the 3, 5, and 10-year periods. In fact, our performance is in the top quartile in all 3 of those time periods, and is actually in the top decile for the 5-year period, which is very important for us at 8.6%. So we continue to compare quite favorably among our peers. Okay, here's a chart that's contained in your written report, which illustrates the LTIP's diversified asset mix as of June 30th for the 4 macro categories shown in the outermost ring. From the largest asset class, that's not showing the, okay, sorry about that. Largest asset class being equities, to the smallest being the defensive, but I'll just go through them. I'm sorry, defensive is not the smallest, but that's bonds, cash and bonds, and then real return assets are commodities, natural resources, and real estate. Diversifying, which would be primarily hedge fund strategies. So, and then the slices of the pie illustrate further diversification within each broad asset class. Okay, the last chart plots the LTIP annualized cumulative net returns quarterly for the last 20 years, and that's the blue line on top, against the S&P 500, which is the black line, and the Barclays Aggregate Bond Index, which is the orange line on the bottom. As shown on the far right, since 1997, our LTIP has outperformed the S&P 500 with far less volatility. It's also significantly outperformed the bond index. Now, we're showing you this to illustrate that longer-term returns for the LTIP are sufficient to cover program support or endowment spending, even after factoring in inflation and administrative costs. Now, this is a critical endowment management principle that's often underappreciated by the majority of endowment managers or peers who tend to have a singular focus on the investment process only. So it's important that we not lose sight of the ultimate objectives of preserving the endowment's purchasing power and maintaining intergenerational equity in order to provide a healthy revenue stream used for endowment spending or program support. Now, I'll leave you with another favorite quote of mine, which actually could serve as our motto: start at the top, then work your way up. This concludes my remarks. I'm happy to address any questions.
All right, Dave, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Item 12 deals with a conflict of interest issue that we're going to review today. It's an approval of a lease and several lease renewals with PSRP Developers, Inc. And if you notice, Trustee Lubert recused himself from this discussion. Back in 2000, when we first started Innovation Park, it was difficult to find anyone to do a spec development for space to get the park started. And Ira Lubert stepped up and formed a partnership with some local guys, and they built several buildings that we are now tenants in, and Ira is now a trustee, so under the university policy, we have a conflict of interest. And what we do there is take our existing leases, look at the terms of our leases, and do an exhaustive review in the marketplace, consistent with the bylaws. When that review is completed, it's submitted, and we make sure that the new leases are competitive in the marketplace. What we didn't add into that equation was any relocation costs or any downtime or disruption costs or things like that. So looking at those leases compared to the marketplace, we're getting a very good deal. For further reference on these, by the way, just so you understand, ownership of 101 Innovation Boulevard reverts back to the university via a donation in July of 2029, and ownership of 103 Innovation Boulevard will revert back to the university in October of 2051. The committee reviewed and approved item 12 unanimously. Mr. Chairman, this completes the report for the Finance Committee, and I'd like to say I want to thank you and my colleagues for allowing me to have this opportunity to lead the committee. It's an honor and a privilege, and I really do appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you for...
Can I interrupt for
all
one
your
second,
report.
Yes, sir.
just for clarification? I told Chair Fenza during our meeting this morning that, for the record, I was the no vote on the renaming of the center. That was based on the fact that we had no information other than a resolution. We've since been given that information, and so I will be changing my vote, so I wanted everyone to know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Trustee Lebrano, thank you.
Rob has reported on his committee's consideration of action items, all of which carry committee's recommendation for approval. The board has received information on these action items in their agenda material in advance of today's meeting. I will call for a vote on each of them. As Trustee Lubert has recused himself for the last item Rob reported on, I'll ask that we first consider that item FBCP number 12, which is now being projected over the screen on 3 slides. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Ira can return. Now returning to the sequencing of FBCP items, I'll ask that the FBCP Agenda Item 1, proposed naming of new East Hall's Residence Hall, be projected. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Please by aye. Opposed? Motion carries. FBCP Item 2, projected now, is the proposed naming of a classroom building at Shavers Creek. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On the screen now is FBCP Item Number 3, proposed child care center renaming. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Displayed now is FBCP Agenda Item 4, the appointment of non-university employees to the Penn State Investment Council. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So noted. FBCP Item 5 is the consideration of the proposed approval of the university's next capital plan, and I'll ask for that item spanning 3 slides to be projected. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, over here. I made this comment at the last meeting when we discussed this long-term capital budget. I understand the need for it, but I again want to express my reservation that this, combined with the typical tuition increases we've seen over the last few years, means that Penn State's tuition will go up by 30% in the next 5 years. So I do want to express that concern.
Thanks. As you know, this wouldn't take into effect until 2018, and we have made a decision on increasing tuition to cover this or not. So just so you're aware of that, and so the public's aware of that. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. FBCP Agenda Item 6 is borrowing authority for the university, which will be projected over 7 slides with a lot of fine print. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. FBCP Agenda Item 7 is now projecting, which is the appointment of an architect for Willard Building renovations. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. FBCP Agenda Item 8 now showing is the proposed appointment of an architect for the Innovation Pavilion at the College of Medicine. May I have a motion for approval? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. If we could have FBCP Item Number 9 projected, which is the proposed appointment of a design build team for the West Campus parking garage at Hershey. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The final FBCP item now being shown is the proposed final plan approval and authorization to expend funds for the emergency department expansion at the medical center. May I have a motion for approval? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Rob. Full agenda. Appreciate it. David Hahn will now provide a report of the Committee on Governance and Long-Range Planning. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met yesterday with a quorum present. I first want to thank the members of the committee for all of their hard work both at and prior to yesterday's meeting, specifically for their review of the substantial amount of material that was posted to the board portal prior to the meeting. We had 2 action items to recommend to the board for approval. The first is with regards to emeriti trustees. Trustee Hoffman led a subgroup of this committee that reviewed service records for emeritus consideration. I reported yesterday in committee that following these efforts, the subgroup recommended Betsy Huber and Paul Silvis for emeritus status. By a unanimous vote, the committee recommends that both of these individuals be granted emeritus status. The service records of both of them had been posted to the board portal for review. Our second item is the recommendation of trustees Barbara Duran and Juliana Potts as appointments to the executive committee of the board, which the committee recommends by unanimous vote. The committee also recommends by a vote of 6-1 to recommend amendments to the charter and bylaws relating to reimbursement of travel expenses and indemnification of trustees. These amendments will be presented to the full board for its consideration in November. The committee received an update from Juliana Potts, who is leading the retreat subcommittee, on progress of planning for the January trustee retreat. We will be sending out information, including a pre-retreat survey to the entire board in the near future. Based on input from the trustees, we will be holding the retreat in Philadelphia. And as a reminder, the retreat will be on January 11 and 12, 2018. If anyone has specific suggestions about the retreat, please reach out to Juliana or to me. Discussion continued around several ongoing topics. First, the skill set inventory for trustee selection was reviewed. This survey will be sent out to current trustees to update this data set. Next, the committee revisited its role in collecting, assessing, integrating, and aligning operating guidelines for all board committees. I want to thank Trustees Duran and Hoschel for agreeing to take the lead on this very important process. Associate General Counsel Frank Guadagnino then led the committee through a discussion of the Pennsylvania Auditor General's report, specifically 9 recommendations as it relates to governance. Through this discussion, the committee reviewed historical basis as well as more recent benchmarking and assessment of board governance, structure, and process. The committee thanked the Auditor General and his office for their thoughtful and thorough review. Finally, we had the first of a series of generative discussions on strategic plan thematic areas. The committee heard from Craig Weideman, who is co-chairing the steering committee for the strategic plan component, Transforming Education. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Chairman Dambley? It's over here.
Yes, Anthony.
Can I was unable to attend the governance committee meeting yesterday, and I'd just like to make a brief comment on one item, and that's, and I know we're going to talk about it at the next board meeting because it'll be an item for us on which to vote, but I'm troubled by the proposed change to the indemnification provision. I believe it will have a chilling effect. Unintended, maybe. I'm not, you know, at the end of the day, hopefully we're never in a position again where it becomes an issue, but I want us to think long and hard about it. You know, the indemnification change is largely the result of what transpired 2015 and 16 with our litigation. I can assure you, you know, it's the only time it's ever happened in this university's history. Hopefully there's never again a reason for it to occur, but I think to make that change would have a chilling effect, because I don't imagine if a trustee felt as though it was their duty to take such a drastic action, that unless they had the financial wherewithal to endeavor down that path, they are likely not to, and that's not necessarily in the best interest of this university. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lebrano. David, thank you. David has reported on 2 action items for full board approval. First is the proposed granting of emeritized status for Betsy Huber and Paul Silvas, who I had the pleasure and privilege of serving with for many years. And may I have a motion for approval of granting the emeritized status for Betsy Huber and Paul Silvas? Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
There's a discussion, right?
Discussion.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
Just a matter of my past practice, from the outset, I didn't believe the class was necessary, and so I'm going to be voting against both today, not because I have anything against them personally, but because I just don't believe that would be consistent with my past action. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Can I ask for a roll call vote on that, please?
You may. Jeannie?
Brown,
No.
Capreto,
Yes.
Casey, Cotner,
Yes.
Dambley,
Yes.
Dandria, Detweiler, Dietrich,
Yes.
Duran, Fenza,
Yes.
Hahn, Herbster, Hertzler, Hoschel,
We know you're here.
It happens.
Hoffman. Jubileer. Kleppinger. Bluebert.
Yes.
Lebrano. McCumby.
Yes.
Oldsey. Paterno. Pope.
Abstain.
Potts. Rakowicz. Redding. Rivera. Schneider. Schuyler.
Yes.
Steele. Tribeck. Weinstein.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now projecting is GLRP Item 2, Election of At-Large Membership for Trustees Duran and Potts to the Executive Committee. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? I'm pleased to have worked with Matt to put them forth, so that would be my discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Rick DeAndrea, Chair of the Committee on Legal and Compliance, will now give his report. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After yesterday's joint meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee and the Legal Compliance Committee that Walt reported on earlier today, the Legal and Compliance Committee had a separate privileged executive session at which General Counsel Steve Dunham reported on pending legal matters. And, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
That's my kind of report. Abe Harpster will report on Outreach, Development, Community Relations Committee. Abe?
Thank you, Mark. The committee met yesterday with a full slate of presentations and discussions. A quorum of members were present. We were joined by Neil Sharkey, who discussed how the Invent Penn State slogan, "Ingenious power of partnerships," comes to life inside the university. And he also provided a brief overview of actions being taken by his office to address the disparity between our top 20 research ranking and our top 70 IP commercialization ranking. He introduced Lindsay Covert, founder of the startup Teamology, who enthusiastically talked about her growing company and the support she has received from the partners inside Penn State to commercialize her IP and successfully launch her business. The discussion continued with each of our administrative pillars of outreach weighing in on how they impact the support for Invent Penn State and helping commercialize the IP created here at Penn State. Zach Moore introduced the committee to Sharima Young, Director of Local Government and Community Relations, who provided us with an overview of her outreach efforts over her first 4 months and described some of her goals for her first year in the job. In August, David and I discussed with our committee colleagues to assist us in some goals and topics for the committee to focus on the upcoming year. We appreciated the discussion and suggestions, and we had a helpful conversation that will help us frame our priorities and topics going forward. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this process. We also had a discussion of public comment. As a reminder, in our July committee, had discussion of the public comment component of the meeting cycle. There was general consensus of the suggestions presented by the small working group, but it did not have a quorum present. We did not act as a committee on that item in July. Therefore, yesterday we explored those suggestions and the committee voted to make the recommendations to the Governance and Long Range Planning Committee, and we would ask, therefore, for that item to be included in their November committee meeting agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our report.
Mr. Chairman, Mark, over here.
Oh, I don't know. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I'm usually not ignored, but
Yeah.
I felt it appropriate to follow up Abe's report on outreach with a quote. Tomorrow evening, the Penn State football team hosts the Georgia State football team. And I was not aware until I saw this quote that Georgia State's president got his PhD from Penn State. So as usual, we want to be a great host to an incoming team. But when Mark Becker, the president, was asked what's his prediction for the game tomorrow, he said, "I learned long ago that predicting scores for college football games is to be avoided. When I was a Penn State student, I'd watch the weekly television show with Coach Paterno, and every week he studiously avoided making predictions. Instead, Jopa would point out that the opponent was a good football team and to be respected, regardless of the opponent and their record. So echoing Jopa Penn State is an excellent football team, and our guys need to be prepared to play their best game ever. Now, my prediction is we'll beat them 60-0, but that's not in the quote. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, I just thought that was an appropriate comment from the opposing president.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate that. And thanks, Abe, for a great meeting. I got to sit in on it, and lots of awesome things happening in our university, and lots of entrepreneurial things. Next is the election of directors for the Corporation for Penn State, which is item 5 in your agenda. As a reminder, Penn State is the sole member of the corporation, and we are nominating Matt Schuyler to replace Dan Mead, who is no longer on the board. May I have a motion for the approval of the proposed slate of directors? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll have an informational report on Penn State Alumni Association by Chief Executive Officer, Secretary Treasurer of the Alumni Association. I'll ask Paul Clifford, CEO and Secretary Treasurer of the Penn State Alumni Association, to provide an informational report. Cliff? Or Paul?
Great. Let's see here. Thank you, Chair Dambley. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, there you go. I appreciate the opportunity to share a brief update on the Alumni Association's impact during the past year as we continue to uphold our mission of service to members, to all alumni, and to our alma mater. It has definitely been a great time to be a Penn Stater and to be engaged with the most powerful network of alumni in the world, which currently numbers 673,845 alumni. There are plenty of people touting the power of the Penn State Alumni Network besides me. For example, recently Penn State was named among the top best alumni networks by the Princeton Review. I'm proud to report that our own indicators to ensure alumni, students, and friends stay connected to Penn State remain strong as well. As of July 1st, we stand as the largest dues-paying alumni organization once again, with 174,074 members. Of note is our growth in alumni members, which is at an all-time high of 142,147 members, or 87% of the overall composition of the Alumni Association. We also appreciate the more than 3,100 new life members who joined us this year. The remaining membership includes 13% from friends, 3% from students, of members of our Blue-White Society, and 2% our parents. We're grateful to our alumni, students, parents, and friends for their consistent support. You can see here where we fit by comparison to our closest peers in the world of dues-paying alumni organizations: Stanford, Berkeley, North Carolina, Michigan, as we continue to do our work daily to strengthen the network and grow the pride. As you can see, it's often said you're defined by the company you keep, and I think we're in very good company here, and yet at the same time, you can see we are unrivaled. A primary way we do this is through our roadmap outlined in our Vision 2020 strategic plan, adopted this time last year. The 6 pillars of the program against which we measure our impact is spreading the good news of Penn State and her alumni, building and sustaining lifelong relationships, harnessing the power of the Penn State Alumni Network, supporting and enhancing the student experience, celebrating academic achievement, and serving as tradition keepers. Our communications efforts share the stories of our alumni and the university while keeping a pulse on national and international happenings. The most recent edition of the Penn Stater magazine, for example, featured the story of PhD candidate Zena Cardman, the newest member of NASA's astronaut candidate class, competing with a record of 18,300 applicants for 12 spots. Zena's quest will take her on a 2-year training program, and she'll become the 5th Penn Stater to travel to space. We also launched our new our new website platform this summer, which will give us even more ability to engage with and tell the stories of our Penn State community. The new site offers a more robust mobile access, content sharing, photography and video, and other user features. We also introduced a vodcast for the Grassroots Network, our legislative education and advocacy program, as well as weekly podcasts for the Football Letter, both of which add to our robust online channels engaging our alumni and ensuring that they're up to date on all things Penn State. Keeping alumni connected for life happens when they travel through our alumni tours program or even when they come back to campus for special events. Nearly 500 Young at Heart alumni came back to University Park in June for our annual alumni reunion weekend, which celebrated the class of 1967 and our pioneer alumni. Empowering alumni to help other alumni is another way we strengthen ties back to Penn State. Our Alumni Career Services program created, that's my song, yeah. Created more than 40,000 individual connections this year between alumni through membership and with our professional career advisors. And our new LionLink community platform, a partnership with People Grove, is powering career connections among alumni and students with easy-to-use profile building and networking tools. Our affiliate group network extends the Penn State experience to all alumni where they live or through their special interests. More than 300 volunteer groups engage over 3,000 active volunteers and 65,000 alumni through this network. The Alumni Association's commitment to diversity and inclusion is strong, and I thought it'd be helpful to expand a bit of our work to create an inclusive environment for all alumni. Our affiliate groups, with a core focus on serving diverse alumni, are critical to our outreach. Interest groups particularly serve unique and diverse constituencies, as you can see listed here. We have more than 35 alumni interest groups, and of those, 17 are dedicated towards this mission. Additionally, we have invested in training and education to recruit younger alumni into leadership positions, and the data here demonstrates that success. Also, with respect to young alumni, and thanks to the generosity of Peter and Ann Tombros, we were able to launch a pilot program this year called Young Alumni Ambassadors. These 5 high-achieving recent grads will be embedded with volunteer leaders and affiliate groups around the country so that they can learn about service and engagement while also carrying out the Alumni Association's mission and message of support for Penn State. We're excited to see their impact. This year, we also chartered 2 new alumni organizations. This year, the African American Alumni Organization of Atlanta Alumni Interest Group and the Penn State Law Alumni Society. We have put special emphasis on supporting our students this year as well. In January, you may recall, as the Alumni Association continued its long history of philanthropic support to the university with a $1.5 million pledge to support student scholarships across Penn State over the next 5 years. We want to provide a way to help ease students' financial concerns, allow them to stay focused academically, and to show that their alumni family supports their success. Proceeds for the gift will come from our Margin of Excellence Fund, which was established in 2000 to support major gifts to the university. To date, our philanthropy as an organization to Penn State totals more than $15.7 million. In addition, our affiliate group endowments surpassed the $10 million mark, another positive indicator. Support of our student athletes was also strong from the Alumni Association, including engagement opportunities around the football team's success. We hosted more than 5,000 alumni and friends at the Big Ten Championship Rally in Indianapolis in December. It was an unbelievable event. And then, of course, the Rose Bowl experience, another fantastic opportunity for the Alumni Association to be front and center with our members and alumni who came out by the tens of thousands to support our student athletes. We had more than 10,000 attendees at our pep rally in downtown Los Angeles. We also spotlight Penn State's academic enterprise by hosting Huddle with the Faculty events every home football weekend at the Nittany Lion Inn, Our next edition is tomorrow, 9 o'clock. We hope to see many of you there. This is our 25th season and will feature faculty stars on a wide range of topics like science and healthy aging, innovation, entrepreneurship, and venture creation. One that I'm particularly looking forward to is about Nittany Lions and their service in World War I. I hope you'll join us for at least one of these engaging events. We are proud to help support 2 new historical markers on the University Park campus this summer. The Historical Marker Program, which was launched in 1989 as a collaboration between the Alumni Association and the university's Office of Strategic Communications to commemorate events and locations of importance to the intellectual and scientific developments of Penn State as one of America's leading public research universities. In August, I had the opportunity to participate with officials from the College of Health and Human Development in the dedication of a new marker recognizing advancements made at Penn State in the field of hospitality management. A second new marker celebrates student broadcasting, which was pioneered on campus more than a century ago. Its installation was spearheaded by our Penn State Media Alumni Interest Group. We also showcase faculty on the road through our City Lights events in major metropolitan areas where most alumni live and work, including New York City featuring the Smeal College of Business, at the National Aviary in Pittsburgh, and also at the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia, which featured Dr. Damian Fernandez, president of Penn State Abington Chancellor, an expert in Latin American politics and culture. Another pillar of our engagement mission is serving as tradition keepers for the university. Tradition abounds here at dear old State, and your Alumni Association is committed to connecting alumni and students no matter what stage of the life cycle they're in. With regard to our overall organizational indicators, we experienced all-time high in revenue and alumni membership, as I mentioned earlier. You can also find specific outcome data on our scorecard, which is available on our website for those of you that can't read the numbers above me. Rolling into the fall season, yeah, pretty much everybody, right? Rolling into the fall season, we're poised to continue our outreach work in a variety of meaningful ways. We'll welcome back accomplished alumni during our annual Alumni Fellows Recognition Program in October. We will continue to support our student athletes on the road with events at every away football game, and of course, huddle with the faculty and homecoming here at University Park. We hope you'll join us for many of these events and experiences as possible. That concludes my report. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Paul. I wanted to alert trustees, should your schedules permit you to attend, there will be a 24-hour POW MIA vigil in front of Old Main starting at 4 o'clock today with a 30-minute ceremony. I want to thank President Barron and his staff and administration. I'd like to thank the board office staff and certainly my fellow trustees for a very eventful, robust, productive 2 days. Thank you for your time and talents and treasures. I appreciate it. Being no further business, meeting is adjourned.
Mark, have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Mark! I'd like to be recognized.
Yes, Mr. Jubilee.
I learned, if I can have your attention, I learned the last couple hours that a great Penn Stater, a great contributor to not only this university, but frankly to humanity, to Penn State Altoona, Don DeVoris has passed away because of pancreatic cancer. He was my friend from the time he graduated Penn State in 1956, so he's a few years older than I am, but we've been friends for over 50 years. I don't know of anybody who gave more of his time, more of his love, more of his care to this university than Don DeVoris did. He's recognized as the DeVoris Center in downtown Altoona, and frankly, there are evidence of his contribution all over Penn State. I had the great honor of pinning
a Society of Distinguished Alumni pin on him just a few years ago. It was long delayed, but I was so glad to be able to do that. So keep him in your prayers. If every Penn Stater had given to this university, not just in money, but in spirit, in love, in care, and just promoting it, as Don DeVore said, we'd even be a better university yet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.